Hi there, and welcome to the Property Wealth Podcast. We're so glad you're joining us today.
Absolutely. It's great to be here, Sarah.
So today we're diving into a topic that can be a bit tricky, but super important for real estate investors. Cap rate versus cash-on-cash return.
Right. These two concepts often get mixed up, but understanding them can really impact your investment decisions.
Exactly. We'll break down what each term means, why they matter, and how they can help you evaluate your properties more effectively.
And we'll also share some practical examples to make it all clearer,
Yeah, and for those of you over 40 who are just starting or maybe thinking about jumping back into real estate, this is crucial info to have under your belt.
For sure. It's never too late to start building that long-term wealth, and understanding these metrics can give you a real edge.
So whether you're looking at a new property or assessing your existing portfolio, stick around. We've got some valuable insights coming your way.
Let's get into it.
All right, Mike, let's start with the basics. What exactly is cap rate, and why should investors pay attention to it?
Sarah, when we talk about cap rate and cash-on-cash return, it really hits home for a lot of folks, especially those over 40. At this stage in life, many are starting to think seriously about retirement, right?
Absolutely, Mike. It's like, for so many people, the clock is ticking. They want to ensure they have enough saved up for their golden years, and real estate can be a huge part of that plan.
Right. And with inflation being what it is these days, the purchasing power of cash is just shrinking. People need to think about how they can protect their wealth from that erosion. Investing in property can provide a hedge against inflation, which is really crucial.
Yeah, I've heard stories from investors who bought rental properties years ago. They've seen their rents increase, often outpacing inflation, and that gives them a sense of financial security. It's like their income is growing, even while everything else is getting more expensive.
Exactly. I had a client. Let's call him Jim. He was in his late 50s and felt a bit anxious about his retirement savings. He decided to invest in a duplex, and while the cap rate was decent, what really excited him was the cash-on-cash return. He realized that the rental income was actually going to cover most of his mortgage, leaving him with a little extra each month.
That's a smart move. And it's really about understanding that balance, isn't it? Cap rate gives you a good overview of how the property performs relative to its price, which is useful, but cash-on-cash return is where the rubber meets the road for cash flow.
Exactly. And, for folks who are over 40, this is critical. They're often in a position where they might be helping their kids with college or even thinking about supporting aging parents. Having that extra cash flow can really ease some of those pressures.
Oh, definitely. I know someone who was able to use the rental income from her properties to help her daughter through school. It gave her peace of mind. Plus, she felt good knowing she was investing in something that would, hopefully, appreciate over time.
Yes, and then there's the whole aspect of wealth transfer to family. Real estate can be a tangible asset that they can pass down. It's not just about creating wealth for oneself, but also about building a legacy.
That's a good point. I think a lot of people underestimate the emotional side of financial security. Knowing that you have a solid investment like real estate can reduce anxiety about the future.
Totally. Imagine being in your 60s, and instead of worrying about how to make ends meet on a fixed income, you have a couple of properties that are cash flowing and can support you. It's a game changer.
And with the current economic trends, it makes even more sense to diversify, right? The stock market can be unpredictable, but real estate tends to be more stable over time.
Exactly. And we've seen how market shifts can affect a lot of investments. But when you invest in real estate wisely, with a focus on cash flow and solid returns, it can provide a buffer during uncertain times.
And then there's the potential for appreciation, right? For example, I read about a couple who bought a property in an up-and-coming neighborhood. They didn't just focus on the cash flow, they also considered the long-term growth potential. Now, years later, they've built significant equity.
That's a great story. It really illustrates the importance of location and market research. They were able to capitalize on a shift in the market. For those over 40, it's essential to think not just about immediate returns, but also about where the market is heading.
Right, and that ties back to understanding cap rates and cash-on-cash returns. It's about making informed decisions that align with your financial goals and timeline.
Absolutely. And, many people think they need to be experts or have a ton of time to dedicate to this, but that's not the case. There are resources and professionals out there who can help navigate these waters.
Yeah, like finding a good property manager or working with an investment advisor who understands real estate, that can really lighten the load.
Exactly. It's all about building a team that can support you in your journey. At this stage in life, leveraging the right knowledge and resources can make all the difference.
And it's so empowering to take control of your financial future. Rather than just hoping for the best, you can actively work towards creating a more secure retirement.
Right. It's about being proactive. And with the right strategies, you can turn real estate into a powerful tool for building wealth and securing your future.
That's a perfect segue into discussing some of those strategies, isn't it? Because understanding this stuff is one thing, but knowing how to apply it is where the real magic happens.
So, Sarah, let's dive into the core strategies. I think a good place to start is with the basics of cap rate and cash-on-cash return. They're both crucial metrics for evaluating real estate investments, right?
Absolutely. I mean, if you're looking at a potential property, understanding these metrics can really guide your decision. So what's a good way to define cap rate?
Well, cap rate, or capitalization rate, is essentially the ratio of a property's net operating income to its purchase price. It gives you a snapshot of how well an investment might perform. To calculate it, you take the net operating income. Let's say you have a property generating $30,000 a year in net income. And if you bought that property for $500,000, your cap rate would be, what? 6%?
Right, because you divide $30,000 by $500,000, which gives you 0.06, and then multiply by 100 to get the percentage.
Exactly. And a higher cap rate generally indicates a better return on investment, right? But it's also important to consider the market. A 6% cap rate might be great in one area, but not so impressive in another, where the average is 8%.
That's a good point. It's all about context. Now, how does cash-on-cash return fit into the picture?
Cash-on-cash return is a bit different. It measures the return on the actual cash you invested in the property. So if you put down $100,000 on a property and your annual cash flow after expenses is $12,000, your cash-on-cash return would be 12%.
So you'd calculate that by dividing your cash flow by your cash investment, right?
Exactly. And it's a great metric for investors who are financing their properties because it reflects the real returns on the money they've actually put into the deal.
That makes sense. So for someone over 40 who might be looking at retirement, understanding these returns can really help them assess how they're building their wealth.
For sure. And that's where simple rules of thumb come in handy. Have you heard of the 1% rule?
Yeah, I have. It's a guideline suggesting that a property should rent for at least 1% of its purchase price each month, right? So if you buy a property for $200,000, it should ideally rent for at least $2,000 per month.
Exactly. It's a quick way to gauge whether a property is worth considering. But, of course, you should still delve deeper into the numbers.
And then there's the 50% rule, which is another useful guideline, isn't it?
Right. The 50% rule suggests that roughly 50% of your gross rental income will go towards operating expenses. So if you're collecting $30,000 a year in rent, you can expect about $15,000 to cover expenses.
That's really practical. It helps investors quickly estimate cash flow without getting bogged down in detailed calculations right away.
Exactly. And if you combine the 1% rule with the 50% rule, you can get a fairly solid initial assessment of a property's potential.
So, Mike, how would you suggest someone evaluate a deal step by step?
Well, first, start by calculating the cap rate and cash-on-cash return to get a feel for the investment's performance. Then, use the 1% and 50% rules as a quick check. If it passes those tests, move on to a detailed analysis of the area, like vacancy rates, local amenities, and market trends.
That's a solid approach. And speaking of local amenities, how important is the type of property or market you're investing in?
Very important. Different property types, like single-family homes, multifamily units, or commercial properties, can have different risk profiles and returns. For example, multifamily units can provide more consistent cash flow, while single-family homes might appreciate more over time.
And you also have to think about the market conditions, right? A booming market might inflate prices, but a stable or growing area might offer better long-term appreciation.
Exactly. Look for markets with job growth, good schools, and low crime rates. Those are generally indicators of a healthy rental market.
That's really useful. And, of course, financing options will play a significant role in your overall strategy.
Absolutely. Knowing what financing options are available can help you maximize your leverage. For instance, conventional loans, FHA loans, or even hard money loans can be viable depending on your situation.
Right, and then there's the importance of having a good credit score to secure favorable terms.
Yes! And don't forget about private money lenders or partnerships. They can be a great way to get started, especially if you're looking to scale quickly.
So it sounds like there's a lot to consider when evaluating a deal. It can be overwhelming for someone just starting out, right?
It can be, but breaking it down into these manageable steps really helps. Just remember to do your research and don't rush into anything.
And keep your long-term goals in mind. It's all about building wealth over time, not just making a quick buck.
Exactly. But, as you get into it, there are common pitfalls to watch out for. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement and overlook key details.
Oh, definitely. What do you think are some of the biggest mistakes investors make?
Sarah, one of the most common pitfalls I see among new investors is over-leveraging. It's tempting, right? You see an opportunity and think, okay, let's just borrow a little more to maximize my investment.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's kind of like, playing with fire. How does that usually play out for them?
Exactly. I've seen folks stretch their finances too thin. Like, there was this guy, let's call him Tom. He bought a property at the peak of the market, used every bit of his savings for a hefty down payment, and then took a big mortgage.
Ouch. What happened next?
Well, the market dipped shortly after he bought. His property value fell, and suddenly he was underwater on his mortgage. He couldn't afford the monthly payments, and that led to all sorts of stress.
That sounds so stressful. So how can someone avoid that kind of situation?
Good question. First off, always have a buffer, like a financial cushion to account for fluctuations in the market. And don't just rely on one property to build your wealth. Diversifying your investments can help mitigate risk.
Right, spreading things out a bit. What about those horror stories with tenants?
Tenants can definitely be a challenge. I've heard so many stories about bad tenant experiences. For instance, I had a friend who rented to someone without doing thorough background checks.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, she ended up with a tenant who didn't pay rent for months. She was left scrambling to cover the mortgage and deal with eviction proceedings.
That's tough. So what should investors do to avoid that?
Well, one of the best things you can do is run a comprehensive tenant screening. This includes credit checks, employment verification, and checking references. It's a bit of work up front, but it can save you massive headaches down the line.
Makes total sense.
And speaking of headaches, another big mistake is ignoring cash flow. Some investors focus too much on potential appreciation without considering the actual cash flow from the property.
That's interesting. Can you give me an example of how that might backfire?
Sure. I knew a couple who bought a fixer-upper thinking they'd add value. They spent a ton of money on renovations, but they didn't calculate how long it would take to rent it out. By the time they finished, they were bleeding cash. They had no tenants and were stuck paying the mortgage with no rental income coming in.
Wow, that's a hard lesson.
Yeah, it is. Always make sure you have a solid cash flow plan in place. If you can't cover your mortgage with rent, then you might need to rethink the investment.
And then there's timing the market, right?
Exactly. Timing can be tricky. I've seen investors try to wait for the perfect moment to buy, only to miss out on solid opportunities.
So it's more about finding the right property than waiting for the market to peak?
Absolutely. You can't time the market perfectly. Instead, focus on finding a good deal that fits your financial goals. Markets will always fluctuate, but a good property will continue to perform well over time.
That's a really great perspective.
Another often overlooked aspect are hidden costs. Many first-time investors forget to factor in things like maintenance, property management fees, or even vacancy rates.
Oh, right, those can add up quickly.
They really can. I remember a case where an investor bought a property without accounting for the maintenance costs. The roof started leaking shortly after they bought it, and they didn't have a budget for repairs.
That's such a bummer.
Yeah, it's a classic mistake. So I always tell people to do a thorough analysis before purchasing. Plan for those unexpected costs.
So what's the best way to spot these red flags early on?
Well, it comes down to doing your homework. Research the neighborhood, understand the market trends, and analyze your potential rental income versus expenses thoroughly.
That sounds like a solid plan.
And don't be afraid to ask for help. Consulting with a real estate advisor or a property manager can give you insights you might not have considered.
Makes total sense.
Ultimately, it's about being proactive. Recognizing potential pitfalls can save you a lot of time, money, and stress in the long run.
Definitely. So if someone finds themselves in one of these tough situations, what's the next step?
Well, a good first step is to reassess your financial situation. Look at your cash flow and expenses and see where you can make adjustments.
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah, and if you're really struggling, consider reaching out to a financial advisor. They can help you create a plan to get back on track. Sometimes it might be about selling a property or refinancing to lower your payments.
Right. Don't just sit back and hope things will change.
Exactly. Take action.
Great advice, Mike. It really helps to hear these real-life lessons. It makes the whole investing journey feel a bit more manageable.
Absolutely, Sarah. It's all about learning and adapting as you go.
Yeah, and if you can spot those red flags early, it can really make a difference.
For sure. Just stay informed and keep building that knowledge base.
I love that. It's all about continuous learning, isn't it?
Definitely. And with that mindset, you'll be on the right path to building long-term wealth through real estate.
Well, I think that's a great note to end on.
All right, so let's dive into some immediate steps people can take right now to really get started with understanding cap rate and cash-on-cash return.
Yeah, I think that's super important. It can feel overwhelming at first, but, just starting with small actions can make a big difference.
Exactly. One of the first things I'd recommend is to analyze a real deal. Just pick one property you're interested in, maybe something in your neighborhood or, a property you've seen online.
That sounds doable. And they can, calculate the numbers for both cap rate and cash-on-cash return, right?
Absolutely. You can use tools like the BiggerPockets calculator or Deal Check. Those platforms make it so much easier to plug in your numbers and see how they pan out.
And for those who might be new to this, what numbers should they focus on?
Good question. Start with the purchase price, expected rental income, and your total operating expenses. That'll give you the basics to calculate both metrics.
Got it. And if they want to do a little research on properties, they can check out Zillow or even Rentometer for rental estimates, right?
Yes, exactly. Zillow gives a great overview of property values and market trends, while Rentometer lets you quickly compare rental prices in the area. They're both super user-friendly.
And what about, getting deeper into the theory behind all of this? Any books or resources you'd recommend?
Definitely. One book I love is the book on rental property investing by Brandon Turner. It covers a lot of ground and is really practical.
I've heard great things about that one. What about podcasts?
There are some fantastic real estate podcasts out there. I'd suggest checking out BiggerPockets podcast. They dive into strategies and interviews with successful investors.
That sounds like a goldmine for insights. And what about habits? How can they build a routine around this?
Start small, like you said earlier. Maybe commit to analyzing one deal a week. Just one! It can be a simple exercise, but really helps you get comfortable with the numbers.
I love that. And joining a local real estate meetup can be super beneficial too, right?
Yes, absolutely. Networking with local investors can provide real-world insights that you can't find in books or online. Plus, it's a great way to build confidence.
And for those who might feel intimidated, it's important to remember everyone was a beginner once.
Exactly. Everyone starts somewhere. You don't need to have all the answers right away. Just take that first step.
So true. And what about accessing local MLS data?
Great point. If you can, get access to your local multiple listing service. It'll give you comprehensive listings and help you understand market trends in your area.
And that way, they can stay informed about property values and see what's actually moving in the market, right?
Right. It's all about knowledge and being proactive. Even if you're not ready to invest yet, just getting familiar with the market can be incredibly valuable.
So, for someone who's ready to jump in but feels a bit overwhelmed, what's the best approach to take it step by step?
I'd say break it down into manageable tasks. Start with your research, analyze a few properties, and then, when you feel comfortable, maybe look into financing options.
It's like building a foundation before you go all in.
Exactly. And remember, it's perfectly okay to ask questions along the way. Don't hesitate to reach out to mentors or other investors.
That's a great mindset to have. All right, so those are some practical first steps. With these tools in your pocket, you're ready to move forward.
So as we wrap up today's discussion, let's quickly recap a few key takeaways from our dive into cap rate versus cash-on-cash return.
Right, yeah. First off, understanding these two metrics is crucial for investors, especially if you're looking to build long-term wealth.
Absolutely. The cap rate gives you a snapshot of a property's potential profitability in relation to its value, while cash-on-cash return is more about how your actual cash investment performs.
Exactly. And that second metric is really about the cash flow you can expect versus what you put in. It's more personal, you know?
Yeah, and remember, evaluating both can help you make a more informed decision, especially in a competitive market.
And don't forget about the importance of factoring in the local market dynamics. Those can really impact your overall return.
Right. It's not just about the numbers, but also the context behind them.
So if you're over 40 and considering real estate investing, remember that it's never too late to start. Building wealth through real estate is a journey, and every step you take counts.
Exactly. It's all about taking informed steps and being patient with the process.
Now, if you enjoyed today's episode, we'd love for you to like it, subscribe to our channel, and hey, drop a comment with your biggest takeaway or even a question you might have.
And don't forget to share this with someone else who's looking to invest in property.
Next time, we'll dive into the 70% rule for house flips, which is going to be super interesting.
Yeah, that's a big one, so make sure to tune in for that.
Thanks for joining us today, and remember, every little step you take toward your real estate goals counts.
Take care, everyone, and happy investing.